It was a sunny summer day, and the Ferreira family gathered in the yard. Enrique, the head of the family, sat in the shade of the gazebo, wearing a robe and a black blindfold. He sipped his coffee while his wife, Cecilia, sunbathed with a cocktail, looking stunning with her perfect figure and impeccable appearance. She stroked her long eyelashes, similar to the rays of dawn, and shouted at her stepdaughter, Bia, a little girl running around the pool, trying to catch a butterfly with a net. "Bia, stop running. Calm down. Can you play quietly for at least 5 minutes? Oh, you troublesome girl." The child was very active and cute, with curly brown hair and chubby cheeks. She seemed like a little angel, already accustomed to her mother's lack of affection. Bia didn't flinch when scolded. A beautiful large bubble with colorful wings rose from the pool. Bia carefully took her phone out of her bag, wanting to take a picture. She got closer and closer to the pool and suddenly fell headfirst into the water. Bia began to scream and struggle because she couldn't swim well. "Dad, Dad, help me!" Her father panicked and rushed to the pool, but he was almost blind and walked unsteadily, stumbling and feeling his way with his hands. He called out for help to his wife. "Cecilia, don't you hear? Help Bia!" "I beg you, I can't see anything. Where do I go?" But Cecilia didn't get up from her sunbed. She just protested, annoyed. "I told you to stay still. This will teach you a lesson. Stop screaming. Someone get her out of the water." Pedro, the gardener, put down the lawnmower, ran to the pool, and jumped in. He quickly pulled Bia out of the water. Bia ran to her father, hugged him, and cried, "Dad, I was so scared. I just wanted to take a picture of the butterfly. My phone fell in the water, too. I didn't mean to." "It's okay, dear. We'll get you a new one. Those are just things. The most important thing is that you're all right. Go inside and change. But please be more careful and don't get too close to the edge. The tiles are slippery. Don't scare Dad like that." Cecilia became furious. "You're so weak. You should have punished her for disobeying you. She almost drowned and ruined an expensive item. All you do is pamper her." Enrique scolded Cecilia harshly. "How dare you? She nearly drowned. Instead of helping, you sat there. Thanks to Pedro, she's okay. Bia is just a child who lost her mother. I love her very much. You'll have to accept that if you want to stay with me. Do you think if you have your own child, they won't run around and misbehave? And yes, I'll find a nanny. I've already put out an ad, but since I can't see, it's hard to manage that." Cecilia realized she had gone too far and quickly backtracked. "Enrique, dear, I'm just irritated," she said. "I love you, but I can't spend all day taking care of Bia. I have workouts, spa appointments, and beauty treatments. Your business and your daughter are now my responsibility. So, please, find a nanny. It will make life easier for all of us. I have to go. I have a manicure appointment and a massage. I love you. Don't miss me." Bia was happy her stepmother was leaving and sat quietly next to her father, hugging him with her small hands. "I'm sorry, Dad, I didn't mean it. Why is Cecilia so mean? She doesn't love me, and you don't see it. I miss my loving mother so much." Her father sighed, hugging his little daughter. "I miss her too, my angel. She was the best. But you know, she's in heaven now. Cecilia isn't that bad. You just haven't gotten used to each other yet. But I promise you'll choose your nanny yourself. In fact, another candidate should be arriving soon." The girl kissed her father's cheek and ran off to play with her toys in the yard. Meanwhile, Enrique closed his eyes in pain and began to remember his life with his first wife, Vanessa, who was beautiful and an excellent homemaker. She came from a decent family, and most importantly, she loved Enrique. They were supposed to live happily ever after. But 2 years ago, she died from a severe genetic disease. Everything started after childbirth. First, her vision worsened, then her memory, and then her arms and legs stopped working. Vanessa became bedridden and gradually faded away. It was so frightening, so terrifying to see a young and beautiful woman become a helpless invalid. And he literally prayed, crying out in helplessness. No matter how much money he spent on medicine, he couldn't make her recover. After Vanessa's funeral, his daughter isolated herself, cried for a long time, and still mourned her mother. He also thought he could never live with anyone else. But one day, during a business dinner at a restaurant, he saw Cecilia. She was sitting with a friend, drinking martinis and chatting lively. The business dinner turned into fun with dancing. They danced to slow music, and fate was powerless against Cecilia's beauty. This was how their romance started, which quickly led to marriage. Cecilia settled in quickly and felt like the mistress of the house. She assigned tasks to everyone and directed the staff. But she and Bia simply did not get along. It was mutual. To be honest, Enrique thought Bia was just jealous of his new wife and that it would pass with time. But even after 2 years, the situation did not improve. The stepmother and stepdaughter fought a lot. Recently, 2 weeks ago, that terrible incident happened. His driver, Timoteo, asked for leave for personal reasons, and Enrique had to drive to work himself. That day, the businessman stayed late at work, and as he approached his car in the parking lot, 3 people attacked him from behind. He started to fight back, but one of the men sprayed pepper spray directly at Enrique. Fortunately, a passing police car scared the men off. However, the burn in his eyes was so severe that Enrique almost lost his sight. Now, he had to wear dark sunglasses or an eye patch while undergoing intensive treatment. The doctors warned him that if the medications didn't help, he would need surgery to restore his vision. This gave him some hope, but he was still terribly nervous. Enrique was practically incapacitated for a while and had to stay at home. What bothered the businessman the most was that he couldn't understand who he had offended so much. He hadn't had such intense conflicts in a long time. Now he needed to manage the company from home, make connections with partners, and hold online conferences. Surprisingly, his wife, Cecilia, quickly got involved in the business and dove headfirst into it. Enrique's thoughts were interrupted by a pleasant voice. "Are you Enrique Ferreira? My name is Marlene. I'm here for the nanny position. I'm scheduled for 12 o'clock. The businessman smiled. He couldn't see the girl holding his hand, but for some reason, he decided she was a pleasant young woman. He started asking questions. "Marlene, how old are you? How long have you worked with children? Do you have recommendations from your previous job? And what is your education? I love my daughter and want to find a real professional for her." Marlene sighed. "Then I'm probably not suitable for you. I don't have recommendations, but I love children very much and I'm ready to work for a small salary. I've already met Bia. She's a wonderful girl. I promise to be with her all the time." At that moment, the girl ran over, seeing her father hesitating and frowning. She started talking excitedly, winking at Marlene. "Dad, let's choose Marlene. I really like her. And after all, you recently said I could choose a nanny myself, didn't you?" The man weighed all the pros and cons. Marlene seemed very young to be a nanny. Only 23 years old with no experience or recommendations. Who knows what kind of person she is? But her voice is wonderful. And Bia really liked her. For the first time. "All right, what will it be?" "Okay, Marlene, you're hired, but on a trial basis. You can start right now. There's a schedule of dance and drawing classes. Take her out and help with homework. Make sure she eats well and inform me of any changes in her health." "Is everything clear?" The young woman almost cried with happiness. She really needed this job. "Thank you. I will try very hard." From that day, Marlene began working for the Ferreira family. She did an excellent job. Bia simply adored her. Marlene didn't pressure or scold her. They were more like friends. If Marlene noticed that Bia was getting lazy or didn't want to study, she used a trick. She immediately organized a competition. "Okay, whoever finishes the task faster and better will win the biggest and most delicious vanilla ice cream. And the loser will have to eat oatmeal porridge for 2 days. Personally, I hate oatmeal porridge. What about you?" Bia would get offended and write those hateful alphabet letters, trying to outperform Marlene and avoid eating bland oatmeal porridge. Enrique was happy with the new nanny. His daughter was doing well academically and was in a good mood. In the evening, she would talk excitedly about Marlene, showing her how to make a sophisticated hairstyle or create macarons. Only Cecilia was not enthusiastic about the new nanny and continued to grumble. "You chose a strange nanny for Bia. She's not just a bold young woman, but she pampers your daughter more than you do. What kind of education is this? We need to be stricter with Bia, otherwise she will get too relaxed. The girl used to ignore me before. At least she would get annoyed. Now she simply stays quiet and goes after Marlene." Enrique said, "You won't be satisfied with any nanny, dear. No nanny is bad, but having a nanny also isn't good for you. If Bia is rude, you don't like it. If she says nothing, it's also bad. Maybe you just don't want to find a way to connect with the girl." Cecilia pursed her lips and fell silent, thinking to herself, "Do what you want. Just keep that annoying girl away from me. I'm so tired of her." There was a grand piano in the mansion, and Enrique used to be a musician in the past. Sometimes he felt nostalgic and played some melodies on it. So when he heard Marlene, he asked, "Marlene, do you play the piano?" "I'm pleasantly surprised. I used to be a musician too. Play something else. I'm curious to hear." The girl blushed and replied, "I'm not a specialist. I just had a good music teacher at the orphanage who taught me and said I had talent. I love music, especially this melody. It touches my heart." Marlene played a slow, romantic tune, and Enrique was stunned. Tears streamed down his cheeks as old memories of his youth stirred his soul. He kept repeating to himself, "Oh my God, this is impossible." When Marlene finished, he thanked her and asked, "Where did you learn this melody?" "It's not recorded anywhere. It was written by someone I knew. My neighbor Ruth taught me to play it," Marlene replied. "She's a talented, kind woman, but she's going through a lot. Her son was taken away, and she was fired without reason. She's deeply depressed. I'm trying to encourage her as best I can." Enrique's heart raced and his legs felt weak. He asked for more details. "How old is your neighbor? What's her name? How old is her son? Why was he taken away?" Marlene sighed. "Her name is Ruth Figueiredo. She's around 30, but I didn't ask exactly. Her son's name is Adamastor, and he's 9. He's a wonderful, smart, and mature boy. I don't know if Ruth was married or who Adamastor's father is, but she once mentioned her first love, which ended tragically. Last, Ruth worked as a music teacher at a private school. She earned a decent salary and worked hard. But then, the principal, who was married, in his 50s, with grandchildren, took an interest in her. When Ruth didn't respond to his advances, he made her life miserable. She stood up to him and reported him to his wife and the police. That's when things turned ugly. Someone broke into her apartment while she was out, left cigarette butts and empty whiskey bottles everywhere. When Ruth returned with her son, social services and false witnesses were there, accusing her of neglect. They took Adamastor away, claiming Ruth didn't care for him, which is a complete lie. I often visited her, and her home was always spotless. She didn't smoke and only had wine on special occasions. Ruth was in shock. She knocked on every authority's door, trying to get her son back and clear her name, but to no avail. The principal also got her fired and publicly humiliated her. Since then, Ruth has lost all hope, spending her time crying outside the orphanage. Adamastor is suffering there too, begging to come home. On TV, they show how well the kids are treated in orphanages, but it's a nightmare. I feel so sorry for Ruth and Adamastor. I don't know what I'd do against that cruel old man with connections who ruined my neighbor's life. Enrique was shocked and tears flowed, stinging his eyes, everything fit together. It couldn't be true. He asked in a trembling voice, "Marlene, please bring Ruth here tomorrow. I need to see her, at least hear her. We know each other, but it's a long story. Do as I ask, please." The girl was surprised but agreed. "Okay, I'll come with her tomorrow morning if she's willing." But how do I explain this to her? Enrique, his voice choked with emotion, said, "Just tell her Enrique is waiting for her." Marlene went to feed Bia lunch. Enrique locked himself in his study. I buried his head in his hands and began to recall his youth with Ruth. He grew up with his mother alone, never knowing his father, who was an explorer. But as Enrique grew, he understood everything on his own and stopped asking questions. From an early age, he loved music and could sit alone for hours listening. One day, while visiting friends with his mother, 5-year-old Enrique sat at a piano and simply touched the keys to play a simple melody. His mother decided to enroll him in music classes, where he met Ruth. He remembered being amazed by the sight of the pretty girl with big bows and a music folder. They sat at the same desk, and from that day, Ruth and Enrique became best friends. Later, they enrolled in a music conservatory together, enjoyed their first successes, and performed in concerts. Over the years, their childhood friendship gradually turned into true love. Ruth was always a dreamer, caring little for material things. She lived for music, loved music, and paid no attention to the low salaries musicians earned or the need to live frugally. But all this bothered Enrique. Like any man, he dreamed of having his own home, a nice car, dressing well, and living comfortably. So, after finishing the conservatory, he didn't pursue further education. Instead, he tried his luck in business and started his own venture, leading to more and more arguments between the couple. "What are you doing? Don't give up on music. It's your talent. You are truly gifted. Your fingers were made to play and create." That's what made him upset. "Ruth, I don't understand you. You're not from this world. Don't you see we're poor? How can we survive on the few coins we earn from music? Who needs concerts now? I work to buy you those gold earrings, to dress you well, and to eat well. Any other girl would be happy with that. Instead, you could tutor and make good money instead of trying to teach me how to live." Ruth felt deeply offended. She threw the earrings at her boyfriend's face. "Take them. They're not a gift if you use them against me. Maybe it's better if we end this. I don't understand you. I don't know what's happened to you. Why have you changed so much? You've become hard, cold, and soulless. I want a quiet, simple family life. I don't need wealth. The most important things are loyalty, trust, and love. But you're obsessed with money. You disappear for days. Your eyes are red. You've abandoned yourself to music. When was the last time you sat at the piano? I won't tutor. I won't take money from children." Enrique waved dismissively. "Fine, then leave. Live your life how you want, but you'll regret leaving me. I'll become a great businessman. We'll see." So, they argued and ended things foolishly, without any good reason. Soon, Enrique managed to open a chain of mechanic shops. He worked day and night. Then he met Vanessa, got married, had a daughter, and other worries began. In this crazy whirlwind, there was no time to look back. But then he met Ruth again and succumbed to her charms. He loved Cecilia, but it wasn't the same pure joy he had felt with Ruth and music. Now, hearing that same melody from his youth, written by Ruth, his heart ached and a wild desire overtook him. He wanted to find Ruth again, to speak heart to heart, no matter how it looked. The first love lives in a person's heart forever, never forgotten under any circumstances. He could barely wait for the next day. He meticulously shaved and dressed in the morning, eagerly waiting for Cecilia to leave for the salon with her meaningless chatter about clothes and gossip. When Marlene brought Bea back from school, she wasn't alone. Ruth was with her, and Enrique could only see a blurred silhouette. The soft scent of her floral perfume and her sweet voice hadn't changed. The woman then said, "Enrique, is it really you?" When Marlene told me yesterday that Enrique wanted to see me, I was surprised. You've changed so much. You've become a strong and prominent man. What happened? Why did you want to see me? And why do you have a black band over your eyes? Are you sick? Enrique, hearing her words and fears, let the tears fall down his face. He took Ruth's hand and felt its softness and delicacy, with long fingers made for music. He whispered, "My dear Ruth, I'm so happy to see you and breathe in your perfume again. We were foolish to end things back then. Do you ask what happened to me? 2 weeks ago, some men attacked me and sprayed pepper spray in my face. Now I'm almost blind. I can only see blurry shapes. The doctors say I need surgery, but that doesn't matter. Marlene told me you have a son, Adamastor. Ruth, tell me, is he mine? Tell me the truth. Do we have a child together?" The woman sighed and answered softly, "Yes, Enrique. Adamastor is your son. I haven't been with any other man but you. No matter how much I tried to forget you, I couldn't. But they took my boy from me. My heart is broken. I can barely sleep. I just sit outside the orphanage, hoping he'll look out the window at me. What did I do to deserve this? I never did anything wrong to anyone. I hate the man who ruined my life. He bribed everyone just to hurt me as much as possible. I'm so desperate, I'm almost agreeing to his terms just to get my son back. There's no other way out." Enrique squeezed her hand tightly and almost shouted, "Don't even think about it. I'll help get our son back. Give me all the information you have. I'll find the right people and hire the best lawyers. Together, we'll bring that unscrupulous man down. I have connections in the police department. Remember Caio? You won't believe it, but he's now a police captain. So, don't worry. I'll bring Adamastor back. I won't let my son wander through orphanages. Please, trust me. Ruth, everything will be all right. I've never met anyone like you. And now, I won't let you go." Ruth found hope again. Enrique called Caio, who readily agreed to help his old friend, suggesting a sting operation. Ruth had to call the director and pretend to agree to his terms and set up a meeting. She was given a microphone, and her task was to make the boss confess everything. Then, he could be arrested. And that's what she did. Ruth was so anxious that she was willing to do anything for her son. She took a deep breath and dialed the director's number with determination. He answered reluctantly. "Finally, remembered me, scared girl? Why are you calling?" Inside, Ruth burned with rage, but responded as politely as possible. "Guilherme, I beg you, give me back my son. I'll agree to anything. Let's meet. Tell me where and when." He smiled mockingly. "Fine. Let's meet tomorrow at 6 p.m. in my office. I'll be waiting for you, my little sweet bird." Ruth felt anger at his disgusting words. When she composed herself, she dressed beautifully, as her situation allowed, carefully hid the recording device, and went to the director's office on shaky legs. The detective said that if things got out of control, Ruth should open the window. So, the woman knocked and entered the office. The director was sitting in his chair, reclining and smiling. He looked Ruth up and down and said, "Good evening, my little bird. I see life has been good to you, and you've become beautiful. Well done. It's been a while since we last met. Come, let me admire you." Ruth almost choked on his audacity and was petrified. What if he tried something on her? But the thought of Adamastor and the police outside gave her courage. She began sipping champagne and eating sweets. "Guilherme, why the rush? We can't be like this. Let's drink. Relax." He didn't oppose, opened the champagne and poured it into glasses. Meanwhile, Ruth went straight to the point. "Guilherme, before we go any further, I need to be sure you'll give me back my son. Can you promise me that? I know you're responsible for what happened, but how did you do it? I don't understand. How did you manage to tarnish my good name?" Guilherme smiled. "You should have been sweeter from the start. Then there wouldn't have been any problems. No one has the right to walk away from me. Do you think my secretary and the gym teacher work for free? They proved more skillful than you, and now they receive excellent salaries and regular bonuses. As for you, it wasn't complicated. A well-known friend of mine works in Child Protective Services. Thanks to my sponsorship, she got a job there. So she paid me back. She placed your son in an orphanage, and I hired some men and witnesses to create that turmoil in your apartment. Money solves everything these days. Believe me, I used to love you. The more satisfaction you give me, the quicker you'll get your son back. Are you relaxed now? Let's start. You talk too much." Ruth realized she couldn't wait any longer. She walked to the window and opened it quickly, praying for the police to come. The director, surprisingly agile for his age, ran towards her. Ruth defended herself, pushing him away. Guilherme started knocking everything off the table. "There's no one here, not even the janitor. Why did you decide to fight back? Are you crazy?" At that moment, the fragile door burst open and the police rushed in, quickly arresting the scoundrel. "Shame on you for such indecent behavior at your age. You're married with grandkids. How will they feel when they find out?" The director struggled and shouted, "You'll pay for this. I have contacts in the police." The officer calmed him down. "We'll deal with that later. How did you manage to take that woman's child and cover it up?" Ruth finally relaxed, took a deep breath, and broke into tears from the stress. "Return Adamastor to me now. He confessed everything, didn't he? Did I do everything right?" She handed the officer a recording device. He reassured her, "We'll solve this. You'll be reunited with your son soon. Don't worry. I'll send that braggart to prison. People like him belong behind bars." The case made headlines, and the old man was convicted. The townspeople were ashamed he'd worked at the school for so many years. Ruth got her job back, and her good name was restored. Most importantly, she was reunited with her son. She cried and kissed her little boy, who didn't want to let go of her embrace. Meanwhile, Enrique was anxious to meet his son, completely forgetting about Cecilia. But she was watching from afar and decided to confront him. "What's going on? You're always busy talking about Ruth and her son. Can you explain?" Enrique couldn't see his wife's furious face, but felt her intense anger. He realized he didn't want to live with her anymore, knowing she'd never get along with his daughter. Besides, his passion for her had quickly faded. Cecilia had become increasingly controlling, imagining herself as the owner of everything. We need to have a serious talk. Ruth is my first love. We went to music school together but broke up foolishly. I found out she was pregnant later. She had a son named Adamastor. So now I'm the father of 2 kids, Bea and Adamastor. Cecilia exploded. Are you saying another child will live here too? I don't even want my own kids yet, and now you're pushing someone else's on me. Enrique replied with a bitter smile. You didn't listen, Cecilia. Our romance happened so fast, but our passion quickly vanished. 2 years later, we're practically strangers. You don't get along with Bea, and I doubt you ever will. When I saw Ruth after all these years, I realized I still love her. Tomorrow, I'll talk to the doctor about eye surgery. We might need to go our separate ways. I'll leave you the apartment and the car. Fine, but you'll have to find a job and live like everyone else. Cecilia stood up, shouting, I'm your wife. Half of everything is mine. I'll take what's rightfully mine. I've put up with your unbearable daughter for 2 years. At least say thank you. But I won't live with you anymore. I don't need this burden. I'm only 25 and have my whole life ahead of me. I'm not staying to care for someone else's kids and a blind husband. Yes, Enrique, now that I'm incapacitated, I'm not good enough for you. Well, goodbye. I won't support you anymore. She realized she had said too much and tried to change her approach. Let's stop here. We're both upset and said too much. Let's wait until you're better before having this unpleasant conversation. Don't rush the surgery. If complications arise, I'll take care of you. But it all sounded insincere and fake. Enrique simply turned away and responded, I've said everything. I need to listen to the meeting recording from my assistant. Cecilia quickly left his office, seething inside. How will I live? I'll have to work. Well, good for you. I'm not cut out for this. Just wait. You'll remember me for a long time. Enrique decided to seek comfort with Professor Ruth, who offered to accompany and support him as a friend. Later, Marlene and Bea returned home from their activities, exhausted. The house was a mess, with expensive items missing. Marlene panicked, immediately calling the police and Enrique. We have an emergency. I think we've been robbed. Everything is upside down. The safe is open. The television was gone and important documents were missing. She called the police again. Come quickly. Enrique told Marlene to stay with Bea in her room and not open the door until he arrived. Enrique turned on the camera and was horrified by what he saw. Cecilia and the driver, Timoteo, were ransacking the house, taking everything valuable. Cecilia had no idea about the cameras and yelled, See, dear, you'll remember me. Timoteo responded angrily. We should have finished him off back then. Now we'll live like kings here. Why is the police coming? Look, they've never passed by here before. Cecilia shouted to Timothy to hurry, as Baba and Baya would be back any minute. They needed to sell everything quickly and buy tickets to a safe place. Enrique was in shock. The police quickly took fingerprints and rushed to capture the couple of lovers. Enrique's daughter hugged and confused her father. I told you a long time ago, Dad, that Cecilia didn't love us. She's bad, and you didn't believe me, did you? You'll throw her out now, won't you? Enrique kissed his princess. You're growing up so fast. Finally, she won't be living with us, but I'd like to introduce you to a nice woman. Do you remember when she came to visit us once? Her name is Ruth, and she has a son, Adamastor. He's your brother. It's a long story. You'll understand when you're older. I really hope you get along well. As for Cecilia and Timothy, they'll surely be punished by the police and go to prison. Suddenly, the daughter asked, anxiously, Dad, what did the doctor say? Will your eyes get better? Enrique replied to his daughter, I'm having surgery on Monday. You and Marlene will stay together all the time. And Adamastor will be with you too. Your mother is coming with me to the hospital. Please, Listen to Marlene in everything. Be a good girl. The police quickly found the lovers following the trail to Timothy's apartment, burned them out, and took them to the station. Now both faced a decent sentence for trying to harm Enrique. Cecilia was in a panic. The damp, grey walls of the prison, the dirty mattress, and the terrible porridge filled her with indescribable horror. Only now did she realize what awaited her. She cried day and night, cursing herself, saying, "Fool, idiot, why didn't I live in peace? And now what do I do? How did I let this happen? I need to urgently meet Enrique and beg for forgiveness. He is kind. He will forgive me. Do you agree to leave this city as far away as possible, to anywhere but here?" Meanwhile, Enrique filed for divorce, leaving all the confusion to his lawyer, and went for his surgery. Ruth was by his side. Marlene stayed home with the children. Adamastor was initially shy and embarrassed, but the lively and restless Bia quickly became friends with him, and the two got along well. And one day, he felt at home. After school, he always visited Enrique in the hospital. The operation was successful, and soon the bandage would be removed from his eyes. Everyone waited anxiously for that moment. During this difficult period, Enrique, Ruth, Marlene, and the children grew so close that they truly became one big, happy family. Adamastor understood his father was unwell and tried to behave well and not disturb him, especially since they always had fun and memorable moments with Marlene. Finally, his bandage was carefully removed. The light hit his eyes immediately, and he instinctively closed them with tears streaming down his face. Then he slowly began to open his eyes and see. He saw the world as it was before the tragedy. The doctor examined Enrique and was satisfied, ordering him to prepare for discharge. When Enrique walked out of the office, smiling, and saw Ruth in the hallway, he exclaimed, "Dear, I knew you hadn't changed all these years. You've become even more beautiful." The same lips, long hair and eyelashes, and the strand behind the ear. "Ruth, you are so beautiful. Finally, I can look at you. I'll admire you every second. I'll be grateful to Marlene for the rest of my life, for playing our melody on the piano." I almost fell. Everything in my soul stirred. "Ruth, I'm so happy you came back into my life. I'm ready to sell this whole business that I've regretted. I've made enough money over the years for our whole family to live comfortably for many years. So let's try to live as you want, in love, peace, enjoying each other, and our beloved music. Do you remember that, Ruth?" She shed tears of joy and hugged Enrique. "These are the words I was waiting to hear from you back then. You know? I was so sad that you chose money and business over our love and music. Of course, I remember. I still love you. Do you remember our first kiss? You had to play the Moonlight Sonata for me, and then we spent the night looking for the Big Dipper in the night sky, kissing passionately. You wrapped me in your coat and held me gently, protecting me from the rain. And at that moment, I was the happiest person. Do you believe me? Let's go home. Everyone is waiting for us there." When Bia saw her father walking confidently out of the car, she understood he could see and immediately ran towards him. "Hooray, Dad! You've recovered. I'm so happy. Let's hurry. We made a cake for you. I'm sure you'll love it." Adamastor and I helped Marlene. Adamastor stayed shy at a distance, not wanting to come closer. They hadn't talked much yet. Enrique told Bia to run home and approach the boy. "Well, hello, son. Finally, I can see you properly. We look alike. You can't deny that. Did your mother tell you that I'm your father?" "I'm so sad because I didn't know anything about you before. And 9 years of your life passed by me. But now that we've met, let me be a real father and a closer person. I'd like that very much." Know that I love you, son. I'll never hurt you and will always support you in everything you do." Enrique extended his hand to the boy and squeezed it firmly, then said softly, "I'm happy you're with me now, and look how your mum is smiling." Enrique hugged the boy tightly, pulling him close. "Let's all live together as one big family. It looks like you've made friends with Bia. She's your sister, so stay together, support each other in life. Well, let's go to lunch." From that day on, the life of the wealthy businessman Enrique Ferreira changed drastically. He became a completely different person. He sold his successful and prosperous business and dedicated himself to caring for his family and music. With great satisfaction, he approached the piano every morning, playing his favorite melodies, many long forgotten. He even took out an old music notebook. Ruth became his personal teacher and also taught the children. In the end, it was great because Ruth and Enrique had colossal natural talent. So they decided to take a risk and open a private music school. The couple got married modestly, not wanting to draw attention to their lives. They didn't have time for that because they couldn't stop admiring and looking at each other. Now only Enrique realized that all these years he had been living someone else's life. He chose the cursed job, the cursed woman, and was dragging that burden. The only thing he didn't regret was his daughter, Bia. She was his ray of sunshine, a reason to live and grow all this time. Ruth quickly became friends with Bia as she was naturally kind, loved children, and worked at the school. Marlene initially feared she would be fired, but Enrique and Ruth rushed to reassure her, "Don't worry, Marlene, stay in our house. You are no longer a stranger to us, and the children can't be without you." Even with Bia, it wasn't boring here. And now we have 2 more kids. Everyone needs to pay attention to them. During all this time, Cecilia was detained awaiting trial, and she prayed for a meeting with Enrique. However, he wasn't in a hurry and dragged it out until the end. He wanted to teach her a good lesson, to discourage her from ever wanting to deceive anyone again. The young woman grew thin, and her skin became dull and lifeless. The thought of spending the next years in this suffocation made Cecilia feel ill, and an overwhelming sense of despair and health problems dominated her. So, when they told her that her ex-husband was ready to meet her, she almost jumped with joy. Seeing Cecilia thin, wearing a shabby gown, with a tuft of greasy hair at the back of her head. He entered the negotiation room. He was surprised by the difference in Cecilia. He knew she had changed a lot. There was no trace of her former confidence and insolence. The woman started crying, tears streaming down her face. "Forgive me, Enrique, if you can. I know I'm to blame for everything. Now I'm left with nothing. I beg you to drop the charges. I don't want to go to prison. I'm desperate here. I promise I'll immediately go to my mother's house and never show up in your life again. Please forgive me. I hope the jail has served as an excellent lesson for you. You won't steal someone else's property anymore, at least not from the hands of the one who feeds you. And you won't mistreat your next husband either." This plan failed. Now I see that my vision has fully recovered. So know that Bia is a wonderful girl. She gets along well with Marlene, Ruth, and her brother, Adamastor. And it wasn't about her, after all. It was about you, an egotistical and calculating person who only thinks about her own interests. I will drop the charge, but if you show up again, you'll surely end up in prison. I kept the security camera recordings. Cecilia cried and whispered softly, "Thank you. You are a true human being." Then the family lived in peace and harmony. Now many people in the city and their children wanted to attend their music school. Bia and Adamastor also learned to play, but the boy chose the violin and drums. and Bea still chose the piano. Ruth often composed her own melodies and wrote poetry. They had family songs that everyone liked to sing together. Finally, Enrique's life was filled with the meaning he had always dreamed of. Thank you very much for watching. Please comment, like the video, and subscribe to our channel. Watch other special videos we've prepared for you. See you later.